Why does your hand already know how to unlock your phone before you've decided to check it? Every morning, the same motions repeat themselves before any real thought has entered the picture. The same route to the door, the same order of movements, the same day dressed as if it started from scratch. None of it feels forced in the moment, which is exactly what makes it strange, because these actions are running before your intentions arrive to approve them. That is the actual power of habit, a behavior rehearsed so many times that your brain stops treating it as a choice and starts treating it as a reflex. We like to picture our lives as a long series of conscious decisions, driven by goals, values, and a clear sense of the person we're trying to become. The truth is less flattering. Most of your day runs on automatic programs built entirely out of yesterday's repeated actions. Those programs decide when you check your messages, how fast you eat, where you sit down, what you avoid, and how you react the instant something uncomfortable shows up. A real decision forces your brain to compare options, predict outcomes, block out distractions, and hold a goal in mind long enough to actually act on it. A habit skips every one of those steps by wiring a specific situation directly to a specific response with nothing in between. Picture the difference between driving through a city you've never seen and driving the same route home for the 1,000th time. One demands total attention at every turn, the other disappears from memory the moment it starts. This isn't a flaw in your wiring, it is the single biggest reason your brain can function at all. Conscious attention is powerful, but it's also narrow, slow, and expensive to run compared to anything automatic. Every new task steals from that same limited pool, whether you're following a conversation, controlling an emotion, solving a problem, or scanning for danger. If tying your shoes, opening doors, and walking across a room all required deliberate control, ordinary life would exhaust you before breakfast even started. So the brain solves the problem by compressing repeated sequences into single, compact units of behavior. Early on, every part of a new action needs supervision because the order is unfamiliar and mistakes happen constantly. Repetition welds those separate movements together until the entire sequence starts running as one uninterrupted action. A skilled typist stops hunting for individual letters. An experienced driver stops calculating every twist of the wheel because dozens of small decisions have already been compressed into a single command. That compression happens inside a loop connecting the cortex to the striatum, the part of the brain built specifically to select and automate action. MIT neuroscientist Anne Graybiel traced exactly this shift. Early in learning, brain activity tracks every step of a sequence, but once the pattern locks in, that activity collapses down to marking only the beginning and the end, while the entire middle runs on autopilot. The brain isn't asking whether the habit is wise, healthy, or aligned with some long-term goal. It is simply recording that a specific response followed a specific situation and delivered some kind of result. That result doesn't have to be pleasure in any classic sense. Relief, certainty, distraction, and the simple end of discomfort all reinforce a behavior just as powerfully. Checking your phone the second it buzzes ends the uncertainty of not knowing, which teaches your brain that reaching for the device is what resolves that exact tension. Eating under stress shifts your body's emotional state almost instantly, which permanently links distress to the motion of reaching for food. Avoiding a hard task delivers relief immediately, which rewards procrastination even though the delay guarantees a bigger cost later. Your brain learns from what happens right now, while your intentions are almost always about something hours, months, or years away, and that mismatch in timing is what gives habits their real advantage over decisions. Skip a workout, and the reward, comfort, lands instantly, while the reward for actually training arrives so slowly that you can't feel it after a single session. Spend money, and the reward lands the moment you buy something, while the cost stays invisible until you check your balance days later. Immediate consequences train behavior with brutal efficiency because your brain draws a clean, obvious line between the action and what happened next. Distant consequences get buried under everything else happening in between, so the connection between cause and effect feels weak exactly when it matters most. This is exactly why knowing the consequences of a habit almost never destroys it. Knowledge lives in the part of your brain that explains what should happen, while the habit lives in the part that's already loaded and ready to act. You can understand nutrition perfectly and still open the fridge with zero hunger because knowing and doing run on two completely different systems. A smoker can memorize every medical risk on the package and still reach for a cigarette the instant the familiar combination of stress, location, and timing shows back up. An intention describes a future you'd prefer, but a habit sits inside your present environment, waiting for the exact cue that switches it on. Some cues are obvious: an alarm, a smell, a room, a specific person, an object left within reach. Others hide inside you and are much harder to spot: boredom, loneliness, anxiety, fatigue, or that restless feeling that something is unfinished. The moment a cue starts reliably predicting the same response, your environment stops being neutral and starts carrying instructions. The couch pulls you into one posture, the kitchen pulls you into one sequence of movements, and the phone next to your bed pulls you into one last scroll before you sleep. A bottle on the counter, an app icon on your screen, a packet in a drawer, none of them are neutral objects anymore, because experience has physically wired a behavior onto each one. This is exactly why willpower collapses in familiar surroundings, even after you've made a completely sincere decision to change. The old environment throws the same cues at you it always has, and those cues fire the same prepared response before your conscious resistance has time to load. You experience that moment as an internal battle, but the fight actually started outside your mind, in the arrangement of the room around you. Habits also draw enormous power from prediction, not just repetition. After enough repeats, your brain starts anticipating the reward before the behavior has even finished, sometimes before it has even started. Dopamine marks the gap between what your brain expects and what actually happens, and that signal is what locks in any action that reliably leads somewhere important. The moment a cue predicts a familiar reward, motivation starts climbing in advance, dragging your attention and your body toward the response you've already learned. That means the craving belongs not just to the reward itself, but to the expectation. The cue creates the second it appears. A notification becomes irresistible before you've even read the message, and the smell of food changes your behavior before you've taken a single bite. The habit starts editing your perception directly, making certain objects, openings, and sensations jump out from everything else around them. Once your attention has narrowed like that, the automatic response stops feeling like one option among many and starts feeling like the only obvious next step. Conscious choice hasn't disappeared, it's just entered a race after the habit has already left the starting line. That race gets brutally unfair the moment you're tired, stressed, distracted, or simply overloaded. Deliberate control runs on attention and working memory, and both of those collapse fast the moment too many demands hit at once. Habits need almost no active supervision, so they stay fully available exactly when your reflective thinking goes slow and fragile. Under real pressure, people fall back on whichever behavior is most deeply practiced, whether or not that behavior actually helps. Stress doesn't reveal your hidden personality, it reveals the routines you trained long before the stressful moment ever arrived. This is exactly why a plan built in calm conditions falls apart during the one situation it was supposed to control. You build the intention to respond patiently while relaxed, then meet the real trigger while angry, rushed, and mentally drained. In that state, the old response already has a complete, well-worn pathway, while the new response exists only as an instruction you half remember from a completely different mood. Every successful repetition makes that old pathway easier to enter the next time, which is exactly how habits strengthen over time. The behavior gets faster, smoother, and more tightly bound to its cue, while any competing response gets less and less practice. Eventually, the habit starts feeling completely natural, even though it was built through nothing more than repetition. People mistake that feeling for identity, calling themselves lazy, disorganized, impatient, or simply incapable of discipline. What actually feels like personality is usually just a rehearsed response glued to a stable situation. Someone who always studies at the same desk after making the same cup of tea experiences focus as effortless, because the environment starts the entire sequence for them automatically. Someone else who opens entertainment, the second work, gets uncomfortable experiences. Distraction as equally effortless, for the exact same reason. Both patterns feel deeply personal, and both were simply trained. The strength of any habit depends on more than raw repetition count. Consistency of context matters enormously, because your brain locks in the link between a cue and a response far faster when the surrounding conditions stay stable. A behavior repeated at the same time, in the same place, right after the same event automates far faster than one performed at random. Emotional intensity matters just as much, because a strong hit of relief or reward stamps a sequence into memory far more deeply than a mild one ever could. A single dramatic experience locks in lasting avoidance instantly, while ordinary routines take countless neutral repetitions to build the same strength. This is exactly why bad habits so often feel stronger than good ones, even when both have existed for the same number of years. Bad habits deliver relief instantly and require almost no preparation, while good habits demand real effort before they pay off at all. The unhealthy snack is ready right now. The endless feed hands you fresh novelty with a single flick, and avoidance removes discomfort without asking you to learn anything. Exercise demands clothing, space, movement, and tolerance for real strain before your body hands over any reward at all. Reading demands sustained attention before a story deepens, while a screen delivers a brand new stimulus with every single flick of your thumb. This was never a contest between a weak person and a powerful temptation. It is a contest between two behaviors built around completely different reward schedules. One path is short, familiar, and reinforced instantly. The other is long, unfamiliar, and dependent on a purpose that's still far away. A decision alone almost never rewires that architecture. Declaring a goal gives you direction, but only repetition builds the actual machinery that carries a behavior in that direction without constant negotiation. Until a new behavior becomes genuinely easier to start, the old habit wins every single time motivation dips. Real change starts by altering the conditions that trigger action in the first place, not by demanding endless resistance inside the exact same conditions that keep beating you. Remove a cue, and the old sequence never gets a chance to start. Add friction, and conscious thought finally gets enough time to step in. A phone left in another room creates a real physical pause that a phone sitting next to your hand never will. Food stored out of sight triggers far fewer prompts than food left sitting out on a table. An app buried behind extra steps loses most of its automatic pull because the sequence no longer starts with one single effortless tap. The same principle works in reverse to build a habit you actually want. Shrink the distance between intention and action instead. Clothes laid out beside your bed the night before turn exercise into the next visible step instead of a project that needs several separate decisions. A book placed directly on your pillow interrupts the usual bedtime sequence and offers a replacement before your phone ever gets the chance. A workspace set up and ready lets concentration begin before motivation has any time to talk you out of it. These changes look small precisely because they don't look like dramatic acts of self-control, and that's exactly why they work. They change which behavior physically reaches your body first. Replacing a habit also works far better than simply trying to leave an empty space where the old response used to live. The cue is going to keep showing up regardless, and the need underneath the old behavior is going to keep demanding an answer. Stress still needs regulating, boredom still needs stimulation, uncertainty still pushes your mind straight toward information. A new routine succeeds the instant it answers the same trigger while delivering a result your brain already recognizes as satisfying. Someone who reaches for a phone during anxiety needs a different immediate action for that exact anxious moment, not just a distant promise to use less technology someday. Someone who procrastinates to escape confusion needs one small, concrete first step that replaces confusion with visible progress right away. That replacement has to sit at the exact point where the old behavior always used to begin. Repetition then does the same job it always did, wiring the same cue to a different response until the new sequence starts feeling familiar too. At first, this feels completely unnatural, because conscious control is now supervising a pathway that hasn't been compressed yet. Every single repetition after that shaves off part of that burden, teaching your brain exactly what comes next until it stops needing to ask. Eventually, the new behavior stops feeling like an argument with yourself and starts feeling like the obvious continuation of the situation you're in. That's the exact moment people describe as finally gaining discipline, even though what actually changed is that discipline is no longer required for every single step. The behavior has physically moved from deliberate control into automatic execution. Habits overpower intentions for the same reason. A practiced skill always beats a memorized instruction. One has been built directly into your actions, the other still exists only as language in your head. Saying what you value still matters, because values choose the direction, but repetition is what decides what your body actually does the moment your attention turns elsewhere. Your days prove this with uncomfortable clarity every single time. You remember every goal you ever set, yet your actual life takes the shape of whatever you repeated on the days when no major decisions seemed to be happening at all. A life gets rewritten through completely ordinary moments. The same cue answered the same way, over and over, until the response becomes part of the environment itself. The morning phone check, the postponed task, the walk after dinner, the book opened before sleep, none of these look big enough to define a person. Repeated across months and years, these small sequences quietly decide what gets your attention, which skills you develop, which relationships deepen, and which opportunities simply disappear. Your brain automates behavior specifically to free you from consciously controlling every movement, but that freedom comes with a hidden cost attached. Whatever you repeat becomes easier to repeat again, whether it serves the future you actually chose or just satisfies the present you happen to inherit. A habit feels stronger than a decision because it was never competing as just another idea in your head. It's already sitting inside the cue, the expectation, the environment, and the practiced motion waiting to unfold on its own. Changing it means turning a decision you want into that exact same kind of machinery, until the better response starts arriving before the old argument even gets the chance to begin.